Hello, everyone. We are here in the Middle East war, the path and outcomes of tensions in the Gulf, hosted by DİPAM, and welcome. Actually, today we have three attendees. Dr. Ali Bakir from Qatar University, Dr. Khalid Al-Mezaini from the United Arab Emirates Zayed University, and Dr. Mahjoub Zweiri from Middle East Council of Global Affairs would be with us today. Mahjoub Zweiri has not attended yet. That's why we will start the presentations of the general evaluation and general broad picture giving of Dr. Ali Bakir and Khalid Al-Mezaini. Actually, let me start in that way. Actually, do you think the emerging regional order is strengthening the U.S. and Israeli influence in the Middle East and Gulf as general, or it creates new opportunities for the China and also Russia for expanding their role in the conflict? Let's start with that, and after that, when Mahjoub Zweiri has when he comes, he will attend us. Thank you. Who wants to start in the first phase? Actually, in my list, Ali Bakir is the first one. Let's start. Let's start to give broader picture of the Gulf right now in Nova.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very delighted to be with you and with your distinguished guests and audience. Before I answer your question, I would like to give some notes, if I may. Then we can answer that question. So I believe that first we should distinguish between two parallel wars that are going on at the same time. We have the Israeli-U.S. war against Iran, and also we have another war, which is the Iranian war against the GCC countries. So I think that right now we are in a kind of quagmire where the Iranians have not much to lose anymore after the devastating Israeli-U.S. Military operations against Iran. And also, on the other hand, the U.S. administration, or Trump in particular, is running out of options. So basically, the Iranians want to save their face by a kind of acceptable deal. On the other hand, as we know, Trump is an untraditional president, and he would like to also project the image of a victorious president, so he wouldn't allow Iran also to save face. That's why he's pressuring them hard to agree on an agreement that would make him at least media-wise victorious. I think that two particular issues are currently under pressure. First, the uranium issue, because this is like in fact, it's a delayed nuclear bomb. So unless the Americans make sure that this uranium is out of Iran, the problem will persist regardless of whether they would reach an agreement or not in the coming few days. And number two, the issue of Strait of Hormuz. I think that the Iranians committed a big mistake by weaponizing the Strait of Hormuz, especially against the GCC countries, because if you take a look on the most affected countries or nations from this measure, you will realize that it is the GCC countries. I mean, also the Iranians are suffering a lot after Trump actually copied their strategy and used it against them by also imposing a blockade against the Iranian exports of oil. And we all know that Iran mainly depends on energy exports, and its economic and financial situation is very problematic even before the war starts. And with the war starting, I think that they had like around $20 billion in financial reserves, foreign reserves. So by imposing a blockade, they will run out of those reserves very soon, and the situation will be even worse. So both sides are looking for an agreement before things get tougher. However, each side is trying to save face, if I may, especially the Iranians. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Gulf, the G states, particularly Saudi Arabia and Qatar, are involved indirectly in efforts to de-escalate the situation and try also to facilitate an agreement between the conflicting parties, especially U.S. and Iran through the Pakistani efforts. However, I believe that we have one big problem is related to the Iranians, because currently we don't know who's actually ruling Iran, because regardless of how the agreement would be finalized, you need someone to sign on that. And at the current situation, we know that theoretically there is a new supreme leader, but we couldn't see him until now, and even he couldn't, if he's still alive or I'm not sure or effective. We also didn't hear any voice recordings for him. So all what we see is a signed statement, and anybody could have wrote that statement. Probably a commander in the IRGC can do this job also. And we have an internal split in the political elites. This is very obvious. I mean, the Iranians usually play the game of good cop, bad cop. That's very well known. But aside from that, there is also a significant, I think, eruption between the elites, and there is no agreement on how they can move forward, which is, I think, complicating the situation for everybody, including the Pakistanis and the Americans. Meanwhile, the Israelis are quite happy with the situation. They don't want any kind of agreement between U.S. and Israel, and at the same time, also, they are ready for escalation against the Iranian regime. Meanwhile, countries like Qatar and Kuwait, I think they are the most affected ones in terms of financial and economic situation, because they are significantly dependent on the exports through Strait of Hormuz, and because the strait is closed, so we have zero exports from Kuwait and Qatar. This is not to say that other countries are not affected, especially UAE and Bahrain, also because of the amount of targeting from the Iranians. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia is managing a situation by bypassing Strait of Hormuz through Red Sea exports, and some even reports saying that Saudi Arabia was able to actually record financial gains by exporting oil with high prices. So this is the general situation right now. Fast forward to your question, I think that it's still very early to determine how the security architecture will emerge in the post-war period. I think that many countries and observers are disappointed by the performance of China in this crisis. I think that also, unfortunately, and this is ironic, because the Iranians have been asking the Americans to leave from the region and to close their military bases. But this particular war of Iran against the GCC states actually allowed the Americans to expand their influence in the region, paradoxically, and also closing Strait of Hormuz and attacking energy facilities of the GCC states allowed the U.S. to become, for the first time in 100 years, the number one export of oil in the world, and also likewise LNG. Also, many countries are currently depending on the U.S. for LNG exports. So this is if you look at it from this perspective, you will notice that the Iranian attacks against these countries actually benefited the Americans, and I don't think the Iranians calculated the situation this way. Anyway, this is what I have right now, and I will be open to answer your question later, inshallah.
Thank you. Professor Ali. By the way, and meanwhile, Mahjoub Zubairi has attended attended with us. Thank you for attending. Let me start a little bit more. Right now, the attendants are giving a broad explanation, broader picture about the Gulf region. What is the things, what's happening in the Gulf, especially. Right now, Khalid Al-Mazaini will start with his presentation. Then I will turn back Mahjoub Zubairi for a great question about the Iran, especially.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aisha, for the introduction, and thank you very much also for the invitation. I'm pleased to be here with some former colleagues from Qatar, Dr. Mahjoub and Dr. Ali. I think Dr. Ali has elaborated significantly into so many issues issues facing the Gulf nowadays. But I would like to start with giving some kind of a background picture about the evolvement of security architecture in the Gulf, because there is a lack, as Dr. Ali has concluded his presentation with, that it is very difficult nowadays to foresee a security architecture in the region, a security cooperation between the Gulf. This is because the problem in the Gulf and the way it has started is that there was a perception, there is a different perceptions toward Iran. How each of the Gulf states perceived the Gulf, how each Gulf state perceived Iran since the 1970s is very much different. And this is the root of the problem, because we have reached to a level that there is a lack of security architecture or cooperation between the Gulf state, is that because Oman has a different perception toward Iran, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and UAE. UAE faces the biggest issue because Iran has occupied the island, which has made the relationship very much limited between the UAE and Iran. This differences in the perception toward Iran has not helped Gulf states evolve or develop a one policy towards Iran since the 1980s, 1990s, and even in the last 15 or 20 years, when we see Iran with the proxy wars, Gulf countries and UAE and Saudi Arabia in particular, in Yemen and so on and so forth, have helped them come up with a united or one policy. And this differences in the perception have also led to what we call it in the international relations perception, is that is this threat from Iran, if it is perceived, is it real or is it imagined? Because some Gulf countries have thought that the threat from Iran is only imagined, it's not real. And therefore, why do we have to always think that we need to prepare much in terms of military spending? Gulf states have been spending so much in military because they were expecting if any escalation with Iran, it will lead to such conflict. So there was anticipated scenario of that whatever is going to happen in the region, in one way or another, Iran will target the U.S. allies in the region. All right, and this is what we are seeing. So some scholars argue that the Gulf countries had exaggerated about their perception toward Iran. In fact, there was no exaggeration. The threat is real, and it has been there since the end of 1970s, when Iran has promised to export the revolution. This have scared the Gulf countries, which led them to spend more money on the military. And this is what we have seen: 10% or 15% of military of GDPs in the Gulf have gone into military. And therefore, in the last 20 years, we have seen each Gulf states have a different foreign policy. All right, Oman has a different foreign policy. Qatar has different. UAE, which eventually led to a conflict between the GCC. There was an intra-GCC conflict, which have not helped the Gulf states to develop a clear security architecture or organization, something similar to the NATO, if you would like to say. So the conflict in the Gulf have exposed the Gulf states more It's not, if one would say that, well, what did this do? What did this war have done in particular? It is actually have exposed the Gulf countries to the real security issue and dilemma that they have been facing. The main issue that the Gulf states have always been talking about is that there is a security dilemma, and also has proved that the Gulf states are not disconnected from the rest of the Middle East. So the Gulf states, there was also domestic perception, and so also among some policy analysts across the region, that UAE is far from the epicenter of the conflict in the Middle East, or Oman or Qatar, and therefore we are not connected, and therefore we don't have to act in accordance. But this has proved clearly that the region is interconnected, and whatever happens in any part of the region, it will in one way or another affect the Gulf states. And therefore the Gulf states over the years have adopted the different strategies because of this threat perception, all right? Threats from Iran or other actors or non-state actors in the region. They have always been, bandwagoning or hedging, but most likely, if the terms are clear for others, is that most states in the past 15 years have adopted a strategic hedging, that because of uncertainty in the region lacks clarity. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow in the region, and therefore the Gulf states have adopted the hedging strategy, which led them to diversify security partners. So improved relations with Russia, with China, other powers in the region, and also at the same time, they have invested at the domestic level to develop a defense industry, because they don't trust any security partner. They say whatever is going to happen today with any other country in the U.S. or European powers, it doesn't guarantee to the Gulf that these states will come in, because the case of Qatar is very clear. Why did the United States did not help the Qataris or help them intercept or detect the fighter jets that came all the way from Israel? So the region, or this war in particular, exposed also the weakness, if one might say, of this regional security architecture. Elaborating on what has Dr. Ali concluded, is that this region is very much interconnected, and whatever is going to happen to Kuwait will happen to other Gulf state. The problem that this war has exposed to the region is that why the Gulf states cannot cooperate in terms of security. It's going back to the very first point that I have raised, is that how does the Emirati or Omani perceive the issue of Palestine or Lebanon, for example? How do they perceive Israel? Each state has a different perception towards so many conflicts in the region. We have so much differences between the GCC than before. One would say, well, we have a common threat nowadays, Iran attacking the Gulf state. Yes, these states might think that, okay, we might react the same, but we adopt different strategies. So each Gulf country will have a different strategy to respond to these attacks from Iran. And there is no one collective strategy that bring all the Gulf countries together. And unfortunately, one has to say that there is a fragmentation. The war has exposed and clearly open the discussion, is that why the Gulf countries have a different foreign policies and strategies. Is it because of the leadership perception towards events in the region? Is it because the region is uncertain? We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. There's lack of trust between actors in the region. So to conclude, I would like to say is that fragmentation is very much a feature of the Gulf politics nowadays, and because of this war. And I think this, despite the negative sides of this war, it might open the door for a possible clear security organization or cooperation in the long term, but once they have a united or one clear policy towards all issues in the region.
Thank you, Khaled Al-Mezaini. Also, Dr. Khaled Al-Mezaini has published a book, An Introduction to Gulf Politics, from a Cambridge University Press right now. So he is a true person for someone who wants to understand Gulf as a region and Gulf politics as well.
If I may say, Dr. Aisha, also The book is co-edited, so
he
leading scholars from the region and outside
yes,
the region.
also probably I did not attend. I did not take the other writer's name. If you want to mention, I would be pleased.
Yes, no, it's the book is co-edited with someone called Christian Alexander, and the contributors are from the region and outside the region. So it is an excellent introduction for those who are interested to know more about the Gulf, especially newcomers to the topic. I don't want to take much of time, but just wanted to say a few things.
Thank you. Professor Mahçup Zubeyri, welcome one more again. If you want, you can start the broad framework in the Gulf right now. Then I will ask questions. I cannot hear.
No, okay.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Aisha, so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you, and it's a pleasure also to meet Dr. Khalid again after a few years. Hope you are doing well, Khalid, and also Ali. Just a quick note. I hope Khalid, someone can review the book for the Journal of Gulf Studies, which I found and edit. I will be happy to publish a book review of your book.
Thank you very much. We'll send you a free copy.
No, if you have someone, he or she can do a review and send it to us immediately.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
We'll be happy to publish it in a matter of 2-3 weeks.
Thank you.
Well, I want to focus actually on where is Iran stands now on this, and what's happening when it comes to the Iran relations with the Gulf region. Actually, not within the Levant as a whole, within the Mashriq al-Arabi, as we call it, the Levant. Historically, in the last 500 years, Iran witnessed more than 5 wars. Started with Chalderan War with Ottomans, and then moved to wars with Russia, with our more than one war, more than, I think, 150 years wars, they call it. And then they got two treaties, Golestan and Chalderan. And then the British and Russia, when they invade Iran in 1942, within the Second World War, and then the Iraq-Iran War. What is the common and what is really interesting about those wars? Number one, in all of those wars, militarily, Iran was defeated. The Ottomans was basically had defeated the Safavids, and after 100, maybe 100 plus years, they signed agreement or treaty called Zohab treaties. But what is the major outcome politically? Safavid Empire was able to remain as an empire 220 years. After more than 150 years wars with Russia at that time, and Iran lost 80,000 kilometer square from its own land until now, and signed what's so-called Chalderan Treaty in 1828. The Qajari Shah was able to remain in power until, or dynasty, they remain in power until 1924. So basically more than 95 years. Those two comments I wanted to highlight, that wars never led to the collapse of regimes in Iran. Actually, wars contributed to the to the regime to stay longer, and that was in the case of Iran-Iraq war. I mean, the more than 40 years. If Iraq war was not there, I think the regime was about to collapse in early 1980s. So wars are useful to the Islamic Republic of Iran. They did not, they tried to avoid it for years. They tried to not to move towards the war after the war with Iraq. They tried to avoid any kind of engagement, direct military engagement until the intervention in Syria. But even there, they tried to justify it that it happened because of the invitation of the Syrian regime. But all of those military intervention and the role of the alliances in the region, Iran was trying not to be engaged militarily, in a direct military engagement. That's why, because basically they learned the lesson from Iran-Iraq war, that wars in contemporary time are costly. They are different with the previous time. However, the two sudden events, the two shocks happened in the region, the Arab uprising and the 7th of October, according to the Iranian, they were not welcomed events. Number one, Arab uprising have led to see Iran as a country, as a regime which is oppressed, basically encourage oppressed regimes, instead of seeing the Islamic Republic as a country which actually protect oppressed people. So Arab uprising was not in favor of Iran politically, and cost Iran the image and militarily, and contributed to the decline of its regional role, as it happened on in the December 8th of 2024. The 7th of October have contributed to the fact that Iran became a target and a special target to the Israelis with the support of the Americans. In the time where someone in the White House or who is, in favor of facing Iran and Iranian intervention in the region, and I mean Trump in this context. So all of those developments basically were against Iran politically. I mean, if Iranians were asked about 7th of October or uprising, the answer will be, no, we don't need those events, because they cost them, and they will contribute to the, I would say, a major role to the fact that Iran is declining regionally. Now, in what happened in summer 2025, and pre that, after the attack to the consulate of Iran in Damascus, was or has been perceived by Iran as a decline of war. And then the 12 days war, Iranians assessed on August 2025 that another war is coming, and they call it the third imposed wars, because they consider the first one is the Iraq-Iran war, the second one the 12 days war, and this one the third imposed wars. And imposed wars to the Iranian means that the regime has distanced itself from wars. However, it is basically force on them, and that's the reason they sell it to their public as a source of legitimacy for defending the nation, defending the regime, and the Iranians to support the regime as well. In this context, they were preparing themselves. The strategy Iran has decided in September 2025 that in case that the country is attacked, they will raise the cost from the first minute of the war. And that is based on reports, some of them leaked by the Parliament's Strategic Center, that the region, the world, cannot allow this war to happen. They try to convey the message to different countries, so the countries do convey it to the Americans, and the Americans can convey it to the Israelis. However, all of this did not work. The war started in 28th of October and 28th of February, and the war itself was not surprise to Iran, But what was surprised is to the world is how Iran responded, basically. Iran, after a matter of 30 minutes, attacked Gulf region, Gulf countries, with the claim that they are military bases, and continue to do so. And then basically blocked the Strait of Hormuz. Those two actions, they were pre-planned. They are not something they decided for the minute. They were decided by even the former supreme leader with his military leaders. So what does that mean to Iran? Iran tried to, according to their own narrative, they tried to maintain the solidarity within the regime, try to prove that the regime is strong. People, they will not act against the regime, and they will be defending the regime, even if the Americans and the Israelis wanted something else. And number two, Iran tried to tell the world that the decision to block or close the Strait of Hormuz can be repeated in other places, and here talk about Bab el-Mandeb. Not only that, they try to send a message to different countries like Indonesia, like China. Why not trying this? Why not doing something on that? So you can, in the future, if someone pressure you, you can use your strait against the others. So basically, they did what I call it piloting, using the Strait of Hormuz as, I call it an atomic bomb, actually. It's important than their nuclear program. Because by doing so, the American has failed to convince the NATO, neither the country nor the organization. They did not contribute to any role. Europeans did not contribute to any role. And basically Iran was, and America itself defeated or failed on what's so-called Freedom Project 1. They failed to open the strait. And basically Iran is controlling it as far as they know. The whole issue about fees and kind of things has a message. I think Iranian has interest to get as much as they can money. They want sanction removal. They want their oil to be sold normally. They produce 2.4 million barrel a day. They want it to be sold, and they wanted their money abroad to be back, and so they can tackle the issue of restructuring after the war. The loss, according to some numbers, more than $350 billion. The damage basically by the Israelis and the Americans, and this basically does not include the nuclear facilities in particular. Now, I will conclude with that. Iran, the regime leadership has been assassinated. I mean, Khamenei, but the regime is still strong. Is there any division, different views? Yes, there are different views. Is the problem about division and between people, or it's about the decision? It's about the decision. The regime is facing a real challenge about changing direction. It's like a pilot on 39,000 feet, and he was asked there is a crisis or there is turbulences, and he has to make decision. So Iran now is about making decision, and none of those people who are in power now is strong enough. The current one, he was not planned to be supreme leader. He's not capable militarily. He's not capable. I would say, politically, and also religiously. He's a person who was part of the intelligence of the Revolutionary Guard, and he was basically doing business for his father. So he's not a man of politics. I think the establishment decided him to be the supreme leader. Just to move on the current situation. I will not be surprised if he's been changed in any stage after the day or after this war ends. Number three, and final point. I think Iran now seeks, with this kind of discussion with the Americans, to maintain an important idea: regime should survive, and they are capable, as according to the Iranian politicians, they are capable to fix their relations with neighboring countries as long as Americans is out. It doesn't mean they're out of the region, but out of the scene politically. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mahcup Zıvayiri. Now, I will ask another question to you, actually, because, for the years, Iran has projected an influence through a network or
Yes.
proxies, we call, or partners across the region. And when you look the current situation, do you think that the U.S. and Israel have managed that network weakening? It happened.
Yeah.
It is weakened
Look,
right now.
Look, the center of that network was Syria, and the minute Syria is out, I think that was the first step of weakening the alliances of Iran. The Hezbollah has been weakened by the assassination process, but also the strength of Hezbollah is the fact that it is one of the representative of Shia in Lebanon, regardless its military wing, because the nature of sectarian identity of Lebanon. That's the reason why Hezbollah survived the I would say the status quo. But it doesn't mean that Hezbollah is in a good situation, in a good I would say power, considering what happened to Hezbollah. But Hezbollah, I think, managed to survive. If you look at Houthis, I think Houthis geography does not help them. I think they're also theological and in terms of religious background, they are not really close to the to Iranian Shia identity. And I think there is a lot of effort done now, as far as I know, by Saudis to distance Houthis from Iran. If this works, it means Houthis will not be anymore part of Iran's network. Who remains, basically? If you talk about Gaza, look at the situation. There is nothing happened. I think Iran will continue to talk politically about its own network. I think they try now to stop. I think the strategy of Iran now, and that's the reason they talk about Lebanon now, and they insist on Lebanon on any future agreement between Iran and America. They insist on Lebanon that the war should stop, just because they want to stop the drain, I call it the drain of defeats, because they feel they were defeated, and they try to stop this using the current war. I don't think so Iran is capable to play any further roles, considering the fact that economically it will be weakened. It is weak now. And also the priorities will be changed according to the current situation. And looking at the past as well, Iran post any conflict, any state, I mean, in the last 500 years, normally the government or the regimes, they enter phase of reforms, and those reforms basically change the priorities of the government. This is what happened to Safavids. This is what happened to Qajar. And I think also this is what happened to Pahlavis. And normally this did not lead to fix the regime or the situation within the regimes. Actually, a few years, the regime did fall. So it may not help the regime to survive for a long time. But the important point, if the regime finished this war without resources, financial resources, I think the scenario of the Americans and the Israelis likely to happen maybe with some few years later.
Yes, thank you for your answer. And now I want to continue with Khaled Al-Mezaini. We know that the Gulf states have largely tried to stay out of the conflict, I mean the direct confrontation, but yet we have still seen the critical energy resources, infrastructure of the infrastructure facilities are come under threat. So what does this tell us about the future of the Gulf security, according to your point of view? And how might countries just like the Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates adopt their security strategies going forward?
Thank you very much, Aisha. I think this particular war, if we would like to look at the bigger picture, has exposed the Gulf countries to the issue of that of two issues. One is the economic diversification and security cooperation. Two important aspects of this war, that the Gulf countries dependent on oil will always put them under the spotlights, that these countries without oil, they will not be able to survive. So it's a question of survival. And even now, even when the war started, Gulf states have all focused on survival. Even a point that was raised earlier by Dr. Ali is that Qatar and Kuwait have not exported any oil or gas for 2 months or since the start of the war. This poses a question of survival. It's not just a security, it is an economic security, political or national security. So the Gulf states, even looking at Oman and UAE, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, the economic aspect is extremely important, and it is a question of survival. Now, probably the only one that is probably more advanced economically is the UAE, because oil contributes only 30%. And also UAE has managed to bypass the Strait of Hormuz and export oil through the port of Al Fujairah, and has increased the capacity from 1.5 million to about 3 million barrel per day, which is an astonishing, because we never thought that there will be an issue. And what also angered Iran is that why the UAE is bypassing oil. They want to use the economic aspect as a tool of pressure on the Gulf states in order for these states to put pressure on the United States. So the economic aspect is extremely important, which leads us to discuss and talk about the security architecture. If one would think about what are the security cooperation between the Gulf countries, they have something called the Al Jazeera Peninsula Shield, which has been used during the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, but have not been really materialized or been improved or developed in the last 30 or 35 years. The Gulf countries have tried in one way or another to develop a security partnership, but we have seen more crises between the GCC than cooperation. So the potential of a security architecture is very weak. I don't think Gulf states will be able to build anything substantial nowadays. Maybe the ideas will float around, but in the long term, I think Gulf states, once they understand that there are differences, and the differences of foreign policies and differences of their behavior across all of the Middle East, if these are not resolved, they will never be able to develop any kind of security cooperation. They have to do it. They have a lot of commons or a commonality between them in order to resolve the issue of security. One clear example for them is that what happened in Qatar is a very clear example that the Gulf states, they cannot rely on external powers because they don't trust external power 100%. Even if the U.S., they say that they trust the United States. Nowadays, they say all of the Gulf states think that, well, we need to diversify security partner. We cannot just say 100% the U.S. is going to help us with this security aspect as a security guarantor. And therefore, they are moving towards cooperating with other partners, in outside the region in order to resolve this issue. But the biggest issue is that why Gulf countries cannot fix their own security. Why don't they cooperate together? The Saudis have a domestic defense industry. UAE has a strong defense industry. Why don't they cooperate together to create something similar to the NATO? Of course, this is something not easy to develop, but at least, the survival of one state is the survival of others. They cannot say that, like what we've seen the past few days in Kuwait, only issuing a statement condemning the attacks by Iran on Kuwait. How long this is going to happen? How long the Gulf states can sustain and say, oh, we're going to condemn, and say, oh, we are against what's happening. they have to retaliate, they have to do something together. But this requires a security architecture, a security cooperation between the GCC states.
Thank you. I will ask same not the same, but close question actually a lot to Ali Bakr about the new security architecture is possible in the Gulf right now when he is looking the beyond of the current crisis. Actually, I wanted to ask him if he see an opportunity to build a new regional security framework in the Gulf, and if so, what would be the essential ingredients for the such system to work? Because I know that he is just right now publishing a book about the Iran-Israel rivalry and its impact on the GCC states and its security right now. And I think that it would be published from the Palgrave Macmillan. So I think it is the right address to answer that question. And his state in just in this place. So, Professor Adibakir.
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying, as Dr. Khalid said, I mean, since the formation of the GCC states, they never adopted a united policy towards Iran, and this has been a significant problem in coordinating their measures or their actions vis-a-vis Iran, especially in situations where the Iranians constitute a threat to these countries. So unless first they come to agree that there are lessons to be learned from this war, and these lessons should bring the GCC countries closer to each other in terms of creating I wouldn't say, because regional security architecture is a big framework, and it needs a lot of significant investments of time, money, effort, diplomacy, and defense. But at least if they can agree on common themes or general rules on how to react collectively when they face a situation in which they are all threatened by foreign actor, whether it's Iran or anybody else. So this is a first condition in order to move forward and try to think of something bigger. Now, I don't see this happening at the current moment for several reasons, and I see actually as if three blocks are emerging out of the crisis. We have, I mean, depending on or seeing the reactions of the GCC countries vis-a-vis the Iranian war against those countries, we noticed that Saudi Arabia and Qatar tilted more towards indirect or implicit engaging to at least de-escalate the situation and facilitate a kind of agreement. The rationale behind such move is that we have two options: either to adopt a defensive posture and try to absorb the Iranian targeting and the Iranian threat until the situation is being resolved, and then we can rearrange our cards again, because we are in a position to absorb a significant hit by Iran. And the other option is to actually switch to offensive mode and also try to attack Iran. And the GCC collective defensive force of the GCC states is huge, especially in terms of aerial power and fighter jets. So if they adopt such a posture, they would definitely harm Iran. But the question is, would they be able to stop Iranians from attacking them? I don't think so. So the Iranians, all what they need is just a few drones or maybe some of the left missiles to attack, and the GCC states are extremely vulnerable. So between these two options, some GCC countries opted for de-escalation and trying to resolve the situation. And we have another block, which is actually and mainly constitute of Oman. Oman position was really unique, and I have to be honest, it's pissed off a lot of GCC states, because the Omanis they tried, or their actions were seen as if they are appeasing Iran, which was not good in such situation. So they didn't secure Oman at the end of the day, because Oman was targeted, and they couldn't contribute to resolving the situation, because the situation is still there. So Oman was like in the middle of those two options, which is something not good from many GCC perspective. And then you have UAE. And UAE, the perception that is that we should do something against the Iranian threats and targeting, because yes, I mean, being defensive is something good, but this is only if it is a limited situation. You cannot just like allow the Iranians to attack you, because at the end of the day, if you show the Iranians that you can seriously respond and harm them, then they would factor this in their calculations when they want to attack the GCC states. And the rationale behind such perception is that the Iranians actually, despite being attacked by Israel and the US, they didn't respond to the Israelis and the US. They attacked the GCC states because they know that these states would not respond against Iran. So the Iranians avoided being engaged with the real aggressors here, which are the Israelis and the Americans, because they know that attacking Israel and America will result in a catastrophic destruction for Iran. And they shifted the war towards the GCC states because they are the weaker link in this situation. So these three perceptions in the GCC or within the GCC are running against each other. So there are lessons to be learned, I think, and they have to calculate many issues in the post-war. But aside of this issue, I think on the regional level, there are some efforts being especially led by Turkey and include, of course, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, to try to establish this kind of regional security architecture. It's not an alliance, it's a kind of a flexible alignment that agrees on general rules in the region in a way that secures the interest of regional countries and make any kind of, let's say, Israeli or American future attacks more costly and more problematic if such network exists in the region or any other country. So in order to establish such alignment, you need a lot of time, a lot of diplomatic efforts, a lot of engagement. So far, at least I think 3 meetings between the foreign ministers of these countries plus Egypt have been concluded, and I think that they are progressing, yes, slowly, but in a steady way. Whether they will reach an agreement or not will depend on how they will accommodate the threat perceptions, because each of these countries has a priority when it comes to the threat perception. Also, each of these countries has its own calculations in its sub-regional domain. Saudi Arabia priority is the Gulf, Turkey priority is Levant, Pakistan priority is South Asia, and Egypt is North Africa, obviously. So it's a complex situation. I think the fact that these countries are sitting together on one table and trying to find a way to establish such alignment is in itself something positive. But we should not just keep talking. We should try to, transit from talking to something concrete on the ground. I think that there are some potentials in this sense. The military and defense cooperation between Turkey and many GCC states, including Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar, are really advanced, and they help also to strengthen these states in the future in terms of autonomy quest and in terms of being diversifying their regional international alignments. Also, we have complementary trade effort between Saudi Arabia and Turkey. We have Pakistan with its, of course, international status and being a nuclear power is very capable to contribute to this situation. So moving collectively in the face of any kind of foreign intervention or threat is a must, I would say, from now on. And I think that these countries are aware of the situation and are trying to develop a mechanism that would be able to engage in such situation, knowing that they tried. I mean, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and somehow the Emiratis also, because they moved collectively, they were able to change the situation in Syria, and they were able to convince the Americans to, change the situation in Syria, despite the Israeli rejection of this direction. So, and this model was tried also in different sub-regions and proved to be very effective. So why not developing it into something bigger? I think there are potentials, but we need serious work on this front, of course. And once it's established, it would be able to drag many countries like Qatar, like Kuwait, like Bahrain, like Jordan, like Syria, Libya, and others to it.
Thank you. There has been a discussion about the Abraham Accords right now, and as a part of the broader regional settlements. So I would be pleased if all of you answer these questions. In your point of view, is this a realistic geopolitical project or more of the diplomatic bargaining tool? And what would you determine whether additional regional actors decide to join to Abraham Accords?
Are you asking me or
all of you? Actually, if I'm asking all of you, I would be pleased if all of you answer this question.
I'll start. I will start. I think the whole project, as far as I am following the story, is it happened in the context of I would say security arrangements in the region, where at that time Iran was a major challenge or a threat, and there was also an American support to have sort of alliances that can be developed and countries can be joined later. I think after this war, there will be a question mark whether this should be the case, continue, some countries join or not, assuming that Iran has been weakened. Of course, security, Israel has its own priority, and still security priority will be on the table to Israel. How the situation will be, that depends on the final scene of this war or this conflict now. But I think the whole issues of normalization with Israel, they are now questioned in the light of this war. Where things will go, it depends on how countries want to decide, how countries will look at the outcome of this war. But this includes even the outcome of Madrid conference and Oslo and the Palestinian Authority project, all of those, projects, including Wadi Araba, including all of those projects. Israel was not helping itself in recent years, and it becomes more than a threat. It becomes more an ethical challenge, even to the European states. Yeah.
Yes, I just would like to also to echo to what Dr. Mahjoub has said. But the original idea has never been about that. This Abraham Accord is about peace between Arab and Israel. This is more of a convergence of strategic interest in the region. And what we have seen that Bahrain and UAE, signing this agreement, is that because there is some kind of commonality with Israel in regards to threat perception in the region. Iran was one of the main reasons why these states have, the regional influence. UAE has engaged in a war in Yemen against the Houthis with Saudi Arabia, and both UAE and Saudi Arabia have seen that Iran was the main supporter and of the Houthis, and therefore there is a threat to the Gulf security in the south from the Houthis, supported by the Iranian, and from the north, also supported by the. So there is this convergence of interest, that there is this Iranian threat, and also threats from drones, because we have seen clearly attacks on Abu Dhabi a few years ago that brought UAE closer to states where they have some commonality. That what is the threat? Who are the main countries that's threatening Israel also? This is how this the agreement was being perceived. There is also uncertainty about defense partners in the region. I think UAE maybe have seen that the technology, with cooperation or defense technology cooperation with Israel was a core aspect of this agreement. So the core of this agreement is never about peace between Arab. The intention was not that we are going to sign the Abraham Accord because this might lead to an agreement, because the issue has been going on for 60, 70 years. It cannot be one simple agreement. There was Oslo agreement and so on, and never been able to resolve the issue. And this agreement cannot resolve the issue. It can maybe contribute, but it cannot fully. So what has this war in particular has done to this accord or agreement? I think it has, to some extent, some countries say that yes, it has exposed some Gulf countries that we have similar threats, Iran been attacking Israel or attacking GCC state. But as what Dr. Mahjoub have said, I agree with that, is that the perception about about Israel after this war is going to be different. Is this agreement going to help? They are looking and perceiving Israel as a killing machine. They destroying. We have seen in the last few days what they are doing in Lebanon. They have seen what they have done in Gaza, in so many countries in the region. Who is going to stop? Are we really willing and ready to cooperate with a state that only understand behavior or have a realist foreign policy, meaning that power is the most important aspect in their foreign policy, not negotiation or anything like that. So this is what I think the accord is can be interpreted in that way.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Ali Bakr.
Yes, the way the Americans and the Israelis see Abraham Accords is a tool to integrate Israel politically and economically in the region. So this is the main goal from the American and Israeli perspective. In my opinion, it's not a realistic goal for many reasons. First, these agreements occur regardless of what people of the region thinks about Israel. And in any agreement about any topic with any country, unless there is a popular support for such agreements, they will lack legitimacy. And when they lack legitimacy, they probably wouldn't survive. So this is number one. Number two, the reputation of the Israelis, and especially Netanyahu at the current time, is very bad and poisonous. So even if you have some governments that would even entertain the idea of joining Abraham Accords, at the current moment, they wouldn't do this because this would actually bring them more problems than any kind of benefits out of such agreements. So that's why I think we will not witness any such move, especially from big countries in the region. Third, the Israelis never, ever respected any kind of agreement, even the agreements that secure their own interests. And we have an experience on this issue. We have a 50-year or more, I'm not sure about the years, with Egypt and Jordan. And the Israelis never respected their agreements with these countries, and they work restlessly to undermine them, putting more even pressure on them. And in return, those countries didn't gain anything out of such agreements. We have also we should not forget that also UAE, when it joined the Abraham Accords, there have been some kind of expectation regarding some issues, especially when it comes to the F-35s and some Israeli promises that the Israelis wouldn't attack the Palestinians or expand the settlements in certain areas. Also, the Israelis didn't respect their promises, and ultimately Abu Dhabi didn't receive the F-35s. So the Israelis are, even when you have some countries who genuinely want to join Abraham Accords, the Israelis don't look to them from this perspective. They see this agreement as a tool to be utilized and to abuse those who join them. So for all these facts and other facts, I don't see this happening, especially if Netanyahu is still in power. And we saw that, lately he was just like utilizing his visit to UAE and cashing it for internal politics, which is something totally insignificant from the Emirati perspective. And he also did the same with Saudi Arabia before, when he visited NEOM, and he uncovered this situation for internal politics, which resulted in rupture between the Saudis. And that's when the Saudis decided that these people are not serious. We cannot go into any kind of agreement with them, and there should be a set of long list of conditions if they want to be serious. So I don't think this issue is survivable on the long term, especially if Netanyahu is in power. Yeah, I hope I answered your question in this regard.
Thank you very much. Actually, today we have talked about the path and outcomes about the Gulf, and we know that the GCC is the most affected region or most affected part of this war. Actually, with being us here, Mahjoub Zubeiri mentioned about the Iranian perspective. Professor Ali Bakr mentioned about the regional security and its effects. Professor Khaled Al-Mezaini mentioned about the general tendencies, and especially the Gulf security. So I want to thank at all for being with us, attending this section, and I hope that we will meet soon one more time once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.